Hello and welcome to Smaulgld's Indian currency ban insanity update. Now, if you remember, the Indian Prime Minister recalled 500 and 1,000 rupee notes on one day's notice in a televised interview last week. Now, in the aftermath of that announcement, gold demand and premiums soared. In some instances, almost 66% over the spot price of gold. The day after the announcement, when the rupees were still good, the prime minister had said that the 500 and 1,000 rupee notes that were then circulating would no longer be legal tender by midnight the next night. Gold sales spiked 23 times from the previous day. And there were long lines and lack of cash to exchange the rupees. And in this podcast, we're going to go through the official reasons for this demonetization of the most widely used currency notes in India, the 500 and 1,000 rupee notes, versus the real reason they did it. Now, this was a shocking surprise attack on cash. The Prime Minister announced basically that the 500 and 1,000 rupee notes would no longer be legal tender, but within 60 days, people who had such notes could exchange them or deposit them in the bank. And many people in the Indian government didn't even know about this announcement. It was kept secret from just only a few people in the government because they really wanted the maximum impact of basically the shock and awe of removing these rupee notes from circulation. Now, the reason they gave was to fight corruption. People use cash, it's not traceable, they can avoid taxes, they can commit crimes, they can launder money through cash. All the normal reasons why governments say or against basically their own cash. The removal of these circulating notes, the 500 and 1,000 rupee notes, are not like large denominated notes, like a 500 euro note or even a $100 US note. They are basically worth about $7 to $15. And the BBC said this in effect demonetized 86% of India's existing cash. So all that cash that people are using, poof, gone. You can't use it the next day after midnight. And your options are you can turn them into a bank and get new notes, or you can deposit them into your bank account. Now, the Prime Minister attempted to downplay this shocking ban by telling Indians while they can no longer use the notes, effective immediately, over the next, by the end of the year, they could deposit them in their accounts in post offices and banks across the country, and they would have new 500 and 2,000 rupee notes available for them. Now, despite the long lines, the deposits of the demonetized 500 and 1,000 rupee notes seems to be going well. You can go to a bank and you can put your old rupee notes that you can't use in stores, but you can put them into the bank and they will credit your account with the amount that you give them. However, exchanging the old notes into new notes has been very problematic, as most of the banks do not have enough of the new notes to meet the exchange demand. And in some instances, the banks have been forced to use coins to complete the exchanges, or basically you have to open an account, or you have to add these old, no longer legal tender notes into a bank account where you go to turn them in. Now, how does this impact gold? Well, gold price rose and sales soared. Soon after the Prime Minister's announcement, jewelry stores were swamped with people wanting to buy gold with their notes before the short period of time in which their notes would no longer be legal tender. So basically within the 24 hours from the time that the Prime Minister made his announcement, Indians rushed out to the jewelry stores that were open late at night to turn in their still legal tender notes for gold. The Times of India reported massive late night volume at jewelry shops. And then there was a rumor of a gold import ban, and that further fueled buying frenzy. The Hindu reported that during the day after Modi's announcement, gold sales were 23 times greater than the previous day. So Indians already love gold. They've already viewed that as something you have to have as a store of wealth, a symbol of prosperity. It's auspicious. It's not like they just discovered the value of gold, but this drove home the point that the government could just demonetize the notes at a moment's notice. Look, you might as well have gold all along. The Indian government and tax authorities are now eyeing jewelry sales as part of their crackdown on black money because they see, first thing people did when they found out that their notes had been demonetized wasn't, hey, let's make plans to go down to the bank and get those new notes. No, they said, let's go to the jewelry store and pick ourselves up some gold in exchange for these notes. The Indian Tribune reported that the price of physical gold in the form of bars and coins and jewelry jumped as high as 66% over the spot price of gold at some dealers. This means that people will ignore the spot price and the physical supply demand dynamic will come into play when people actually want the gold. Physical delivery. I'm not talking about buying an ETF. When people realize they need to have gold, they will line up to buy it, and whatever the spot price is, if the dealer says, "Oh, I'm not charging that spot price, I'm charging you more," and if people are willing to pay for it, pay the higher price, that becomes the price. Now, as I mentioned, during the couple of days after the announcement, the and many jewelers, and it probably varied from jewelry store to jewelry store, they were basically charging what they could get, and they were charging significant premiums. Here's a chart that shows this I get from a third-party service, and other reports have been that all year gold has been trading at a discount because of the import duty and because of the lack of demand during the year in India because of higher prices as well. This chart shows, though, that it's been trading at a premium all along. However, it does show the big uptick right here in early November when Modi made his announcement. So gold premiums are definitely happening in India. They were already starting to happen in October as the gold buying season started to kick in and those discounts went away. Then gold started trading around spot price. Gold has been trading in India at a price higher than spot for some time, and for a brief moment probably during that 24-hour period before those rupee notes were demonetized. As we mentioned, there were reports that gold was trading at about 66% at some jewelry stores at a premium over spot. If you're interested in gold, you can buy some through, not recommending you do, but if you do, you can buy some through the Smaulgld website. We have affiliate agreements with a number of gold dealers. You can buy all sizes from down to the 1/10 ounce size American Gold Eagle coins all the way up to the 1 ounce Gold Eagle, Gold Buffalo, Krugerrands, whatever. You could do that by clicking on any of the links that we have on offer. If you do purchase your gold through Smaulgld, we receive a small commission, but you pay no more, no less than if you were to buy your gold through these websites directly. Now let's take a look at Indian gold imports. Indian gold imports have been low all year, as we mentioned. Look at that. Not quite the level of imports that we've had over the past couple of years, although in September they started to move up. October, I believe that number goes to about 60 tons. They're now saying that in November, especially based on what's happened with the demonetization of the rupee announcement, that gold imports may be up in the 80 to 100 ton range in November. We'll have to wait and see. We do a report monthly on that. If you're a subscriber to Smaulgld, you'll get that sent to your inbox. The way you subscribe to Smaulgld, you go here, you fill in your email address, and you will get that email sent to you when we report monthly on Indian gold imports. Now, what were the real reasons? The real reasons. Also, you can buy silver through Smaulgld as well. You can buy that nice looking panda, Chinese gold panda. Plenty of opportunities to shop and compare prices on the Smaulgld website. I'll put a link below how you get to Smaulgld, or just type in SMAULGLD.com and you can check the entire site out. Now, what were the real reasons behind India's rupee demonetization? These are my thoughts. I'd like to get yours. Leave comments below this blog post or below this YouTube video. I think it's an assist in the war on gold. The rupee ban just opens a new front on India's war on gold. Now, Indians love their gold, and the Indian government hates that they love it. It's estimated that there's about 18,000 tons of gold in Indian households. That's more than 3 times the amount, or 4 times the amount that the United States says that they have at Fort Knox. It's more than the combined amounts of gold that Germany, Italy, France, Netherlands, probably more than twice as much gold as those countries have as official reserves. 18,000 tons of gold is a lot of gold, and it's scattered throughout the country in individual households in small amounts. Gold is outside the system, it's portable, it's fungible, it's widely recognized. It's got a 5,000-year history as a store of wealth in India. It's a medium of exchange in India. And gold doesn't require a government mandate to give it value. And conversely, a government mandate can't take away its value. And gold is hard to track, especially if purchased with cash. So by attacking the rupee, they're attacking gold, because if you take those rupees away from people, they can no longer use them to buy gold, and therefore their transaction is not traceable. However, if you get them to exchange their gold, deposit them into banks, and now they have credit cards, debit cards, even if they buy gold, it's still traceable. So this is another way of attacking gold. Now, India's war on gold hasn't been going well. They had the gold monetization scheme announced well over a year ago. It's been a spectacular failure. Only a few tons of gold have been turned in, mostly from temples, not individuals. For those who don't know what the gold monetization scheme is, you can click on the link, read about it, or I can tell you quickly what it is. The Indian government is offering its citizens gold bonds, where you give them the physical gold. They in exchange give you an interest-bearing bond, and they pay interest on the gold that they hold. And they want you to give it to them for years, and they'll pay interest, and suppose you get the gold back at the end of the term. Indians have looked at that as like, you got to be kidding me. Why would I give you my gold and then you're going to give me some rupee bond? Some temples have taken them up, but really, I think the last I saw, only a few tons of gold have been turned in, and mostly have been from temples who, it's not their gold technically. It's not an individual giving up their gold, so they think it makes prudent sense as an entity to perhaps make a little money off the gold that they hold. The Indian government had instituted a 10% gold tax on imports in late 2013, and of course the justification there was that India had excessive gold imports. It was screwing up their balance of trade. But even that gold import duty, as you can see, in 2015, didn't really dent the gold imports. It has finally had an impact in 2016. You take that 10% gold duty import and you tack on the increase in price that we've had in 2016, and it has had an impact, and it has slowed the gold imports. As a result of this war on gold, there has been a 32% decline year over year from the period of April to October 2015 to 2016 in the Indian trade deficit, exactly what they wanted to accomplish. But in October, while exports were up 9.6% year over year and imports were up 8.1% year over year, which is good, it helps their deficit shrink more, gold imports rose 108% in October. And preliminary data, as we mentioned above, for November shows a projected further increase in gold imports over October. So there's reason to believe that rumor that the government may place a ban on gold imports if it really starts to increase their imports and their exports don't increase at a comparable rate, and their deficit will start to widen again. Now, another reason, other than helping fight the war on gold, is why they put this ban on the 500 and 1,000 Indian rupee notes, was to disrupt and shock the cash market into digital trackable transaction by forcing the Indians into a digital banking and credit system. Because remember, what they had to do in order to retain the value of those notes was either use them in 24 hours, which it's not likely that most people could do that, or in 60 days you have to turn them in. Well, less than half of Indians have bank accounts, and in rural areas that could be as high as 80%. Indians use cash more than credit or debit cards and save their wealth in gold, and they also save some rupees. Well, now they can't save in those rupees that they had saved. They've got to turn them in. Well, they show up to turn them in Oh, so sorry. We don't have any notes to give you. Why don't you just deposit your notes? See what's going on here? They make you deposit the notes. They can issue you a debit card. They can ask you to apply for a credit card. And now you're in the banking system. If you want to hold on to the value of those rupee notes, you can either have spent them within the 24-hour period, or you can go and try to exchange them. But if they don't have the notes, guess you got to put them in the banking system, and the Indian government's hoping that you'll leave them there. The Royal Bank of India said, oh, they're talking about why there's not enough cash, why we can't exchange it. They're trying to assure people, look, we'll get it. We'll get the efforts are afoot. We'll make up more notes for you, but you're encouraged now to switch over to alternative modes of payments. Here it comes, such as prepaid cards, credit cards, debit cards, mobile banking, internet banking. See, isn't this wonderful? You don't need cash. We've just outlined what you can use instead. Don't worry, but we'll get to the cash if you want it. Let's see how quickly they make those new notes for people to exchange. They also hope people get fed up and just put the money and figure it is more convenient to have the credit card, the debit card, the prepaid card, whatever it is. And then they throw in the little pitch for, if you do these things, it's patriotic, you're alleviating the pressure on physical currency and also enhancing the experience of living in the digital world. Just what every Indian wakes up in the morning thinking, I need to enhance the experience of living in the digital world, even though the average Indian or average anybody wakes up in the real world. Now, it appears to me it was no mistake that sufficient new rupee notes were not printed in advance of Modi's announcement. Last reason why I think they did this: they want to force cash into the banking system to recapitalize the banks. They not only want to get the Indians into this digital transaction system where they can track, trace, tax your transactions, but they also wanted to get more money into the banks. How to do that? Sorry, we don't have any rupees to exchange for your old rupees, but please deposit your rupees here. So the cash demonetization with this deposit feature, with only limited exchange available in effect, forces Indians to put their demonetized notes into the banks and accept those debit cards, accept that online internet banking service that they offer. Now, once in the bank, they put those rupees in the bank, they can be issued debit cards, offered credit cards, and thus begin a massive move away from cash into a digital, trackable society. And that's what India's done. So it may seem to have been a lack of planning that they weren't ready for the amount of people who wanted to exchange. They didn't print up enough notes. I think that was intentional. I think they wanted to get all the people to show up at the bank, whatever currency they might have had, and get them to deposit in the bank and start tracking and tracing Indian transaction. Thanks very much for listening. There's some further reading here I've added. You can click on the blog post. I'll leave a link at the bottom of this podcast. And please remember to follow us on Twitter and subscribe to the Smaulgld YouTube channel, which is just about at 1,000 subscribers. Thank you.